Welcome to the Leadership Labs with LEX AI, a podcast where we delve into the fascinating world of deep tech entrepreneurship, company founders and venture capitalists. I'm your host, Anthony Kelly, and I'm thrilled to have you join us in this exciting journey. In each episode, we explore the minds behind groundbreaking technologies, the visionaries who dare to push the boundaries of innovation, and the investors who fuel the growth of tomorrow's game changers. Susann Funke, who is a co-founder and CEO at LEX AI. In this episode, Susan's going to talk to us about selecting your co-founders, what her personal growth story has been like coming from a non-tech background, coming from being a lawyer, practicing lawyer, into the AI startup world, and then how she really used that knowledge that she has of the legal market to give her a good value proposition and product market fit at LEX. But look, without any more waiting around, Susann, welcome to the show.
Thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you. Not every day I've got someone from a non-tech background on the show, so I mean, look, to sort of set the scene here a little bit, why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction into yourself and your background, I guess everything prior to before LEX, and then we'll jump in and talk about LEX.
Yeah. So, well, it's already quite some time when I started my career. It was, I think, already 15 years ago when I started to work as a lawyer, of course, after studying law. And but what I realized really from the very beginning was, to be honest, I didn't like the classical profession as a lawyer. I thought, okay, I was completely wrong. And that's why I changed more or less immediately into the consultancy area, where my legal background was also really appreciated, because in those days, it was 2008, 2009, and I think everybody can remember the financial crisis and all of the new regulations coming to the financial and also the energy markets. And that's why I was always involved in many, due to my legal background, many regulatory products where we evaluated for financial institutions or other players in the banking area, but also in the energy market, what a new regulation really means for them, not only legally, but also from a business development perspective, from a financial strategic perspective, if there is any relevance for HR and things like this. So really along the whole value chain. And what I realized already in those days, 15 years ago, was that there is such a massive regulatory jungle, which is permanently growing, permanently changing, that people really, and even let's say are well-established lawyers, paralegals, they all have really a pain to navigate this regulatory jungle, to analyze, okay, this is relevant for our company, this is not relevant, this is only for certain aspects relevant. And this is really, really a massive issue. And in the very beginning, I always thought, of course, people should see that this is applicable or this not, but it is more complicated than what I thought due to this massive complexity. And so, a couple of years later, I don't know, hundreds of projects later, I decided with one of my long-term colleagues to found LEX AI, but he has also a non-technical background, and that's why we decided, okay, to look for some co-founders with an IT and also AI background to really to found LEX AI and create a platform which allows a quick and easy, cost and time efficient legal monitoring.
Right. I want to jump in on that there, because I'm going to go and ask some questions that may be slightly controversial, right? If we talk about, like, let's say in the realm of innovation, most people would say in Germany there's almost rules in place to stop such innovation actually happening. And not only that, when you look at highly regulated environments, medical space, the legal space, right, makes it even tougher. What did you see was going on in your field that you said, right, LEX can be a solution here this is where the ideas come from.
Yeah, we really had an I think it was almost 3 years ago. We received a call from a large industrial customer, and they said, "Oh, we missed one regulation completely, and unfortunately, our advisory board realized it." And of course, now it's really a shame. And please help really to find out what's relevant for us. But we only have 5 days.
Nice.
And it was about the European taxonomy package. And the taxonomy package already in those days was 600 pages. Now it's, I think, a couple of thousand pages. And of course, it was again difficult for us to find the most recent version of the regulation, all of the side documents, the history, maybe already some good existing summaries, some, let's say, legislative briefings, really useful material, so that you do not have to completely to start on the green field, which already gives you some, let's say some orientation. But this was not existent. And really after 5 exhausting days, I said, I want to have a platform there for that. I don't want to do this anymore completely manual from the very beginning. This is such a pain. This is so horrible. We need to change that. Everybody is suffering this situation, this kind of regulatory complexity. We really need to ease our lives. And even if it's only a bit, we should try it.
See, I do
really the initial moment that,
I was going to say,
LEX AI.
I do like your answer, because I said I wanted to be controversial, and I said, there's a lot of regulatory bodies that don't want and want to stop innovation, and it was a cause of a client moving further, which was a stopping innovation, to then this terrible process being the solution, to then innovation being the answer. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
so
hopefully.
You mentioned there two non-tech founders. What did you do? Where did you go to, right? Because large language models are new. I get you can understand the terminology. You can sort of tell a large language model professional, here's the data sets we want to work with. This all makes sense for us. This is where we want to be spending our time. But it's still pretty hard to find someone in large language models. They're too new. They're probably all applying to, I don't know, DeepMind, OpenAI. How do you get them to you?
Indeed, it was not, let's say, that easy, and it also happened more or less accidentally that we found someone also in our, let's say, wider network via LinkedIn. We were talking to people, and they said, if you want to do this and that, approach this guy, and this guy knows a lot of other people. And so it was like also a piece of a huge puzzle. And then we really found 2 people where we said, okay, this might make sense. They are also experienced, or they understood right from the beginning what we wanted. They also saw the issue in our very first meeting, where we were really very productive right from the beginning. And that's why we said, okay, this might be our co-founders. And so it wasn't such a long time. I think it just took 3 or 4 months. And of course, we had several sessions. It was not just one session to develop a bit more the idea, really to do a lot of brainstorming, but a concrete one, not on a high level, even on a product development level, evaluating, okay, how much time this would take, and who can bring in which kind of capabilities, but also, of course, what would this cost, when we would be ready to take first customers on board, what could be the minimum viable product to go live, so that we can quickly attract customers and, of course, also earn money. And this is what we already evaluated from the very beginning. And I think that's why we thought, okay, now we have a kind of a solid basis to officially found a company and to set up the whole thing in a very professional way.
Nice. That's it's really good, because I guess quite quite good that you make it seem and sound easy, because
It was
I'm
a
sure
process. It
there
was a
was
process.
sleepless nights.
I summed it now up in maybe 2 minutes, but it was a process. It was a process which took a couple of months, and really evaluating. Okay, this might be our co-founders. We also had many sessions with other potential co-founders, where we then sorted out. But also on their side, no, we do not have a good. This is not the right fit with regards to personality, but also with regards to capabilities. So, really, it was a process, and I think everybody who wants to found a company and does not know right from the beginning all of your co-founders, you should know this is also a time-consuming process, really to find a team where you think, okay, we can also work together for the next years, because you're spending a lot of time with these people, sometimes more time than with your family. So you should be able to rely on each other. You should have also the same attitude, how to work, also how much effort you want to really bring in creating such a company, developing new features, also maybe to make a product turnaround and see, okay, no, this doesn't work at all, we will start again. And still being, let's say, optimistic, future oriented, and keep the mood on a solid level is really not that easy. Doing everything at the same time is really it's challenging. It's challenging. It's not that easy, and it's also in Germany, founding a company is not done completely via an online process. Unfortunately, Germany is not that digitalized. It also takes some time to do this, going to the notary, having a meeting there, signing the documents. Everything is personally. It's time. It's time consuming.
It's sending responses by mail, in the post mail, not email.
Of course, getting physical copies. This is really still
Yeah.
very important, you know.
I mean, you must be used to that coming from a highly regulated environment, which I mean is quite helpful. If we were to sort of look underneath the hood of, let's say, like the last 2.5 years almost, like besides obviously being successful in finding your co-founders was very challenging to do. Like what was the big barriers put in your way for success?
It was, of course, in the very beginning, you only have really few money. We are completely bootstrapped, and so it was also really difficult to find, of course, some more employees, because you cannot do everything if you are only 4 people. You can create a solid basis, but then if you really want to speed up, also with regards to technical development, doing very early sales in parallel, you need more than 4 people. This is for sure. And really finding good people, of course, which are really good working students, because in the very beginning you cannot afford very experienced top management, senior level experienced professionals. This is definitely not possible. And really finding right people who wants to work for a very early startup is also sometimes not that easy, because a lot of people really want to have a safety that you are there still in 2-3 years, which you of course cannot guarantee. This was also challenging, but also luckily here we found really good people again via LinkedIn. And of course, really also keep the speed of the development, always creating feedback sessions with your users, and then also really making something out of feedback and keeping up the speed, which also users are expecting today, especially also in such a regulated area. Because our typical users are lawyers, head of innovation, head of legal monitoring or paralegals, and of course they are expecting a lot because they are used to a lot of content. So this is nothing new for them. So just having a certain piece of content is not exciting for them. So we knew right from the beginning that we need to have a lot of content. But also with regards to technical features, people today, especially in this area, they are very, very demanding, and so really fulfilling their requirements. This is a permanent challenge, really.
Yeah. That's something jumped out to me that are quite interesting, and I can ultimately relate to it right now. I'm one person in my business at the moment. I've got one person joining in 2 weeks, another person joining in 6 weeks, and hopefully another two people joining in 8 weeks. But I mean, the last 8 weeks, yeah, thank you. The last 8 weeks, I'll be very honest, have been extremely tough because I'm
Yeah.
I'm everyone and I'm everything, and I've really struggled with that. And I mean, I've done well to not take work on with me. You know, I can still leave at what I would consider to be a reasonable time, between 6 and 7. I don't work every weekend. I might spend a couple of hours doing a bit of pre-work to catch up, but you know, it's ultimately different for different people in different industries. How did you make that balance of deciding who takes ownership over what at the beginning, as you know, four founders or four co-founders?
Yeah, this was something which we indeed determined in the very beginning. Are having, let's say, four different people with a different set of skills, and I'm really the, let's say, the only licensed lawyer. So I took care of our also internal legal setup. This really starts from the creation of the foundation contract to working contracts, the employment contracts, the freelance contracts with the freelancer, but also our general terms and conditions. And in the parallel, of course, as a lawyer, I am the one who is together with my other co-founder, who also has a kind of a similar regulatory background. He's not a lawyer, but he also did some business law studies. We are also doing sales, approaching the customers, and you can realize that they want to talk on a certain legal level. And then I'm giving the feedback to our other co-founders, which then are transposing our requirements into product features. And of course, this is also really challenging because they are speaking another language than I'm speaking. And I do not mean German or English.
That's a fantastic one though, because it jumps straight into your value proposition, right? You're determining everyone roles and responsibilities based off their skill sets. You're a trained legal professional. You have the language, but your tasks in the business are ultimately more valued somewhere else. So there might be a pivot to come in here, but then you also have to also adapt the skill that you've never had. You have to then talk to the AI guys in the team and say, right, this is what the customer said they'll like, and you know, you could be coming to them with this idea that is amazing, and they're like, yeah, it's just not possible, right?
Yeah. So and then we are really let's say, try to put us on both sides in a position and say, okay, explain it to me as if I was a 3 or 4 or 5-year-old kid. Explain it really in a very simple way, always assuming I have no clue what you are talking about. Explain it in a really simple way. What do they want to have? 1, 2, 3, 4. This is their key features. Okay, we would like to do it like that. And then I say, okay, now I'm already stepping out. I have no IT skills. Of course, this improved over the time, but what are we now referring to? What you really want to do? What you want to do on the left side, on the right side? Show it to me. What are you doing here? What does this mean on your screen? Because I cannot read whatever you are doing here. So this is something which also I think founders should not really underestimate, that you are, of course, it's positive having a completely different set of skills, but it also means that you are permanently on a translation level somehow, and you always need to yeah, to remain on that level, so that you are not really like in the movie Lost in Translation, so that this does not happen to you. This is something which happens, by the way, once in the beginning. I thought I explained it really properly several times, but then a completely different feature came out 1 or 2 weeks after. We realized it pretty quickly, and I said, "Huh? No, this wasn't what I wanted."
This isn't what I asked for.
Yeah.
So this is actually a great, perfect example of the guests that I want to be speaking with, because predominantly, as I said, my guests have been from the technical side, and they're often almost to AI to speak to their clients, right? And you can see what that's like. You've been on the receiving end. What's worked in getting that right, that level of communication?
I think you really need to be aware, okay, that it takes time. Uh, and then you should also really take time and say, okay, even after 2 or 3 days, let's discuss it again. I know we discussed it, but just let's evaluate again if we are still on the same side, if we are still on the same page, if we still have the same common understanding of that thing. Always, let's say this, you always have to do a loop again and again, to be sure that you're talking about the same thing. This is, I'm not sure how to call that kind of approach, but it turns out that this was really valuable for us. And we also found out that the documentation, also really a written documentation, is really useful. So we also have a huge Kanban board. We are documenting many things in Notion, in GitLab, wherever, to be sure, okay, we are talking about the same thing. And it's always clear that I'm writing the requirements on the left side, really just a simple example, and saying, okay, it should look like this and that, and what is in the middle, this is more or less to the IT and AI side, but I need to make sure that this translation is working, but making this really, sure, it means that we are sitting together at least a couple of times a week to discuss and align on that, even on tiny little steps. Really important, because if you are sometimes going at a certain point in another direction, and it is not visible for me, or vice versa for them, then of course it might end up in a mess, because you're working on completely different things.
Yeah, I like that, and I think I've been criticized for saying over communicate on this before, but I do also feel it's quite important, and it's important to over communicate. That is, it's important to over communicate, because when you over communicate, it's also reaffirming your business's message, your brand, why you do what you do. When you're very early and you want to get the people in your team excited, early adopters, I say you want them to become culture architects, means that you just really want them to fully back your business no matter what direction you are going in. And then they breathe that, they go to a family dinner. Oh, wait, and I tell you, I'm so excited to tell you what I'm working about now. Then when the new people join into them, and then they translate that same message down, that's ultimately my goal of over communication. I've yet to see it actually work, but
It's basically, you I would say you can even not over communicate. This is in a startup not possible. Of course, you should be aware, okay, the day has only I don't know, 12, 14 hours where maybe want to work or something like this, because you also need some sleep. You also need to calm down, some time for you personally, for your family. And but you should always save at least a certain amount of time per day, where you really takes time to reevaluate your ideas, to figure out, okay, if this is if this is still the right thing, what we are developing, because you are more or less getting permanently feedback, and or should get that, or you're talking to people here, talking to people there, and then you are getting some kind of new input. And of course, this new input also should be brought into the whole discussion with the team and said, hey, I talked to, I don't know, some other guy, and he told me that something like this and that already exists, or it would be cool to have such a kind of feature because in their company they're exactly lacking this and that and things like this. So these kind of side inputs are pretty important, of course, and this is something which you cannot really plan. And
Good.
that's why you always need to reserve some time a day where you exactly reevaluate and discuss such issues that are not planned, that are permanently coming uncontrolled from everywhere. And I think this is really important, and this also brought us really always certain steps forward. And sometimes we just said, oh, this was a stupid idea. Okay. And we kicked it aside. So this can also be a result. Of course, not each idea is a good one.
Good, and it's good because I did want to jump in there to talk about that value proposition, that product market fit. So, I mean, most people say come in, solve a challenge. Some people say find technology, then find the challenge. You found the challenge. You had to review 600 pages in 5 days. Very simple. Now, could be a not so common problem, right? Could be a problem that only happens 2-3 times per year. You then have to go and find out, is it? You obviously have a little bit more of a luxury coming from that background, but then you've got to, the challenge is you got to put a cost on it to automate it, to bring an AI into it, and you got to find out, does it fit the market? Does the cost of you automating that, is it actually worth the time of it?
Yeah.
What's that journey been like? Because you've probably had a career where you've met a lot of people that you could reach out to, a lot of connections. How many people did you speak with to find out, hey, what would you pay for?
Yeah, especially with Doris, it is such discussions are never that easy. Because usually, or I think it's a common understanding that of course lawyers are earning really good money, and but anyway, they do not want to spend a lot of money for new technical developments, because this also might create some overhead and so on, or might be a useless spending. And of course, lawyers coming from a still very traditional profession and very traditional law studies, they are more they are not really IT oriented, so it's not in their DNA, I would say. And what we did is that even in the very beginning, we talked to several law firms, and we presented our idea, our product, which in those days was even not a product, and then we asked them, okay, how are you solving that problem today? And then it was their turn to explain it, how they are doing it today, if they would like to improve it. And sometimes, even when they stated, oh, it's a mess and we want to do it, we are doing this manually. And then we said, okay, we could have a technical solution for that. Oh no, we want to keep the solution manually. This was really also surprising that that sometimes they just want to do it manually, and it shall remain like that. Of course, it is not in each law firm the same, but some things they still want to do manually, because this is sometimes kind of jobs where they also attract young lawyers, and what is a kind of a step into a law firm, things like this. So they had several reasons why to want to keep a certain area more or less manually, and instead of making this high-tech, automated, whatever. And then it was in the very beginning, we thought we would do much more also with creating summaries and things like this. We are still offering that, but it's more or less an add-on. Meanwhile, our most popular product feature is the news feed, the legal, the regulatory news feed. We are publishing news from Europe, from Germany, Austria, Canada, US. Now we are also going to publish India, UK, or Ireland in the future, China in the future. So it was because people said, "Oh, we are really missing, or it is difficult for us to remain up to date because we have to open so many websites. We even do not know all of the sources. And then you have to click again and open there a tab and there and find the link. And then we are documenting this in huge Excel sheets. This is where you could help us." And then the solution was, okay, then let's set up a newsfeed. Of course, an AI supported one, because we wanted to do this also more automatically. But the solution was another thing than what we thought in the very beginning. And this came, let's say, I'd say more or less after 1 year. So because with all of the discussions, and it was sometimes surprising what law firms but also legal departments said, what they would like to have and what their issue is. And of course we were not jumping on any issue, on any pain they have, but if the pain is there, let's say for 4 or 5 law firms, big law firms, which are telling you, okay, we are all suffering the same pain, then it might make sense to take this as the let's say as a common a most common issue they have, and to develop the product further based on this issue. So this is how we are approaching the whole thing. But of course, it is also a challenge getting people to talk to you, being really open and share their opinion, and not saying, "Oh, everything is fine." We know it is not like that, but anyway, they still have to admit that and really talk openly what they want.
Yeah. Hard to get when you're almost sort of cold outreach and cold prospecting. Were you just playing the numbers game? Was that it? And trying to speak to enough people who'd give you time? Did you have...
Of course, this is also time you should plan for. Indeed, it is difficult to plan, because even sometimes finding a certain suitable date for everybody in the calendar is an issue. And then it is postponed because someone is on holidays, someone is ill, someone is not available for whatever reason. It is so you should schedule as many such meetings as possible, because some are, for some reasons anyway, kicked out of the calendar, which is not in your hands, which you cannot influence. And it is, at least in our area, it was not that difficult making people answering you. They answer our emails. They say, okay, let's listen. Sometimes but it takes time until they answer. Sometimes they are answering 8 weeks later based on our email, something like this. So you also need to calculate that even getting that input might take some time, because people are not permanently available as we would like to have that. So this is the truth, and that's why it is really a time-consuming thing to gather all the feedback, even to get it, to find a time where you could get it.
Now, leading on from, I guess, what you find out from these calls, you've obviously had a lot of them where you've come back quite excited. You said, "Oh, we develop all these new features, you put them on the left, and then you kick them in like a couple of days, couple of weeks." Like, what was the process in deciding what is no longer a feature, what's staying as a feature? It's not easy, and arguably every failed feature costs a lot of money.
Definitely, and that's why now we are doing with our customers. Let's say it's just half an hour, because we do not want to spam them. We do not want to bother them. A kind of a feedback session, just 30 minutes. They shall tell us what their experiences are, how often they are using the product. If it is really helpful for them, what was really helpful, or what was the most helpful thing, what really helped them to save time and costs, or if there were some other aspects what they really appreciated. And then we are presenting, let's say, 5 new product feature ideas which we have, and then say, okay, which one would be from which one, the ones that are already, let's say, pre-selected, and then based on these 5 pre-selected ideas or product feature ideas, we are presenting this to them and saying, okay, which one would be the most valuable for you, or none of this? And if none of this, what else? So this is how we handle that, and this is what we now started, let's say, 3 months ago. And this is really useful because users also, first of all, they like to get a short feedback, not a time-consuming thing, a short one, 30 minutes maximum. And they like if they can give their input, and that their input also has an impact on the product development, so that we can tell them another 8 weeks later, okay, we are now in the middle of developing this and that feature, and we are assuming that we are realizing it in another 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever. And this is what they like, really being in a close exchange, but in a very efficient one, because what people definitely do not have is spending resources on your product development. They want to use it, they want to have it, but they don't want to spend time into development. This also needs to be really efficient, because it's at the end, it's their time, and lawyers are calculating in billable hours, so each 30 minutes is a lost billable hour.
Yeah. Fair. Before we crack into some of the sort of closing stuff, I did want to ask you, quite related to that as well, getting product feedback. But related to the Gen AI space in legal tech, right? We briefly spoke about it before we hit record, but there's large law firms spending 11 million to build their own open AI chat GPT internal tools, similar ones like I think I've flagged about 64, 65 legal tech Gen AI companies in 2023 alone. Startups brand new being registered. So definitely on the rise. We can definitely see where and why, right? I mean, ultimately you can say you're billing more hours and have an AI do it. Whether that's going to be the practice or not, I don't know. But what do you and where do you think this is going to be heading? Where will we see the real benefits?
I think we will definitely see more generative AI applications. But we always have a kind of a legal value chain, which starts with the legal monitoring, because you permanently, as a lawyer, you need to be up, also as a judge, or you need to be up to date. Otherwise, you are giving the wrong legal advice. And but then, of course, we also have the we have the legal monitoring in the very beginning. Then we have contract creation. Then we have more contract analysis, due diligence issues. So the legal area is a really, really wide one, and our generative AI can more or less apply it in any of these areas along the legal value chain. So so I think even if there is one solution or two solutions for the same thing, there's always room for more solutions, because some of them, they are only focused on a certain jurisdiction, some they are only focused on tax law issues, some are only focused on more on justice issues, and there are so many different things where you could bring in a tech perspective into the legal world, which is more or less, I would say, only to 10% digitalized, if you really consider the whole legal world. There is still so much room for any kind of development, so that you will never run out of, out of business. It is more really to find a solution which is easy to use for paralegals and lawyers, because it is, as I said, it is not in their DNA to develop an own IT solution. This is completely out of their sight. This is not what they are trained on, and so finding something which they can pretty easy adapt and say, oh, it works like this and that, and understood in 20 minutes. Then this is something where they say, okay, this is really an added value, something which is easy to use. And this is also, I think, one of the reasons why JetGPT is such a success story. It is easy to use. You type in something and the result is coming out. No matter if the result is completely right or wrong, but lawyers can use it, you know? It is not too complicated. You do not need a training session for that. It is easy to understand right from the beginning. No hurdles, no barriers, not really usability for lawyers, especially in the area where we are. Easy usability is such an is so important. If it's too complicated, then it will not be successful. And coming back, let's say to OpenAI, and I'm not sure if it always makes sense to announce like PwC, we are spending 1 billion on generative AI or things like this, because PwC, they are a global active company. They are active in any jurisdiction that exists on our planet. So really creating something that even with 1 billion, such a one fits all approach, which is then also adapted in any company, in any PwC company and entity and subsidiary. And they are active in tax and consulting and in legal. And, you know, it is not that easy. And it is always great to read something like this. I'm always really happy to read that they are investing into that, because this changes people's mind that this is not really something a kind of a nice to have idea. This is really changing the profession, but it is still a long way to go from a press release really to implement it and make it work for any jurisdiction. Because this means that you have to train your language model on any jurisdiction that exists in the world, which even JetGPT, by the way, didn't manage to do yet.
Yeah, there's not. I do feel that there's a huge space in the market for,
No.
as you said, niche products, niche solutions. Train off these niche data sets. It will give you the correct terminology. It will give you the correct, for your examples, like referencing, which is going to be super important when you're writing highly regulated documentation as well. Of course, that goes for healthcare as well. I was even thinking, look, if there was one used for recruitment, I mean, hell, I'd use it.
Yeah, indeed. So it is really it shouldn't be underestimated, and ChatGPT, it is helpful. It can be a solution for many things, or it is a solution for many things, but not for everything. This is what also people should be aware of. And AI doesn't start and end with ChatGPT. There are also many other areas, also completely other industrial areas like pharma, like chemical, the chemical area. And there are so many things where you really require a specific knowledge and not a general trained JetGPT, because then you really need to dig into scientific details. You cannot rely on a chatbot. This is not possible.
Yeah. I mean, it's surely I consider AI to be a lot more than chatbots, but I mean, I've been in this space for probably about 6 years. I get sent some pretty cool stuff on LinkedIn. I tell you that much. I've seen robots cutting hairs. Obviously, we've got self-driving cars in some places, self-driving copters, food delivery drones. I've seen drones deliver medical supplies to remote islands where someone needed a heart transplant. They sent the drone in 20 minutes in what is normally like a 16-hour trip, because you need to boat twice, drive so many times. It's just really, really crazy.
Yeah,
But
indeed.
you're right. I do think the press releases, let's say from like your PwCs, basically everyone adopting it definitely helps. To finish off, Susan, I've got some quick fire questions for you. Are you ready to jump into them?
Of course.
Cool.
Let's
Start
start.
off. Number one, what advice would you give to a new founder who is starting today?
Evaluate your idea, evaluate the market, and not only with your family. Speak to people which you do not know.
Good, good.
Get lots of answers.
Content that you'd recommend to other listeners. So it can be a book, a podcast, sure, it could be a TV series or a movie.
Oh, I think listen to, let's say, no, maybe being even a bit more traditional is reading the newspapers, see and read it really consciously and see and analyze which industrial problems are contained in the newspaper. Because newspapers can tell you really a lot what the industry suffers. So if you want to sell some kind of industrial product and whatever, read the newspaper and analyze their problem behind. And if you read it several times, then you can be for sure that there's also a market.
Yes. Nice. What would your 3 non-negotiables be when it comes to leadership? And for that, I mean, like they could be like your personal principles, what your drivers are to set standards.
Within our company?
Well, whatever ones you personally live by. If they're the ones of the company, that's fine.
I think with regards to leadership, I think I really, I do not have a certain standard. I'm always listening to our employees and then really getting them an open and serious feedback. And this is what people really, really appreciate. Also that we have a kind of an honest personal relationship without being close friends or something like this, but really that they can always talk openly and that no stupid questions exist.
Susan, great bit of advice there, and I think that just sees us through to the end of this episode. It's been an absolute pleasure having you, Susan. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me. I have to thank you.
That concludes another enlightening episode of the Leadership Labs podcast. If you found today's episode thought-provoking and informative, be sure to subscribe to the Leadership Labs on your preferred podcast platform or on YouTube. Thank you once again for joining us on this journey through the Leadership Labs. Until next time.